Hello, everyone. This is Dalal Azim here at the Toronto International Film Festival, and we are here with the director of Who We Grown Now, Minhal Baig. How are you, Minhal?
I'm great. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, it's an absolute pleasure. How's Toronto been treating you so far?
So fun. I love this festival so much. It's one of my favorite festivals.
Have you had a chance to go out and explore and whatnot?
I haven't had much time to explore, but I did get to watch a movie on my first night here.
Oh, did you? And how was that? How was the vibe for you that first opening night?
It was amazing. It was packed. I was glad I got there 15 minutes early because I think I might have been shut out if I hadn't.
Yep, that's TIFF for you.
Yeah, but that's amazing. I mean, I love that the cinemas are packed. It's great.
I know. I think with everything going on the last couple of years, it's kind of like the first true TIFF. Well, I guess minus everything else that's going on, but it's like the
It's
first true TIFF.
amazing.
People are coming back and being like open and like being okay with being in theaters. Last couple of years, it's been like hybrid, but now it's kind of like super cool and everyone's enjoying it and the vibes.
Yeah,
Awesome. So,
I love it. It's great.
well, hey, I want to congratulate you right off the bat on being the first filmmaker that made the entire theater that I was in cry by the end of the movie.
Okay, is that the case? Did you collect tears at the end? You're like, please put
I
this.
collected mine. I was like, oh no, this is what's going on here? Someone cutting onions? It's like, no, I'll be like completely honest. I loved it. And yeah, walking out of it, my 9 a.m. screening this morning, I wasn't expecting something so deep. I thought my coffee was deep enough, but
Yeah.
this just hit me in all the right parts where it's like, wow, like sometimes you're just thinking about what it feels to be human.
Mm-hmm.
This movie made me question a lot of those things.
I'm so glad.
Where did the idea for this even come from?
It probably seems a little bit oblique about how I got into this and what is my connection to Cabrini Green in Chicago in 1992. So I'll start from the beginning. So I grew up in Chicago, and Cabrini Green was always a place I'd heard of. I'd never visited there, but it existed. Chicago was very much, we had lots of different public housing projects. As I was in the early 90s, I was growing up, and that was common knowledge. By the time I graduated college, the last of the towers was demolished in Cabrini Green. And so when I returned home, the city was really different. At the time, it was a year later, my father had passed. And so we had this family home in Rogers Park where I grew up. And my siblings and I were deciding, what do we want to do with this home? We all had a really different relationship to this home, what it meant to us. And for me, it really wasn't going to be the same place anymore, because without my father, it didn't really feel like home. I wanted to explore this concept of like what home meant, and I was interested in Cabrini Green, and specifically because a vibrant community existed even after the towers had been demolished. Because as people lived in the high rises, they became very close to each other. It was a very tight knit community. And so that was sort of the connective tissue. Was like, I'm really interested in exploring this theme, and I want to set it in my hometown. I want to explore it through the lens of people who have lost the physical marker of home, and what does home mean to them. And so it was a process that started in 2018. I started interviewing former Cabrini Green residents. It was not the easiest process because it's not hard to find people. The residents themselves are so generous with their time and their stories. And it was such a person-to-person basis. It's not like a large directory of people and I'm going down and meeting everyone. I was really going from one person, and they would say, you got to talk to my cousin or my mom or my grandma. And then that's how it happened. The script evolved very organically from those conversations. And I zeroed in on 1992 because Dan Charles' name kept coming up, and he's a very important figure in the history of Cabrini Green. It was a turning point for the neighborhood when Dan Charles was killed. And so the story, I felt like it needed to happen at that time where the community is on the verge of this change. And then as I was interviewing people, I was really focusing in on how they viewed the high-rises in their neighborhood as children, because it really gave me a different perspective. It was something that I hadn't seen on screen before. So that's how the story ended up being about these two best friends growing up in Cabrini Green in this year.
Yeah, it was interesting because this movie, we're seeing it from the lens of these two characters, Eric and Malik, but it's so universal. when I was watching it, yes, it was specific to Chicago and specific to this specific area that the movie is based on, but it's very human. It's a very human story, and I think it's not every movie has to be about end of the world or
Yeah.
like this and that, and those are great and they have their own place in cinema as well, and I love those. But I think this is just a story about everyday people and how they navigate through their lives and things that may not be physically the end of the world, but maybe the end of the world to someone like Malik or Eric, or of course Dolores, having to live for her children and then at the same point trying to figure out who she is. And I love that about the movie, that it explores all those different themes. And you kind of mentioned a couple things earlier that really stuck out to me, and it's very metaphoric, and there's
Yes.
a lot of quotes that kind of stuck with me
Yeah.
throughout the film.
Okay.
So a couple of them, again, right off the bat, a place is the people, right? So for you, when you're coming up with these kinds of like quotes that have like multiple layers to it, for that one specifically, what was the thought process behind it?
I want to say that I remembered how that emerged, but I think there was always going to be a scene in the film where Malik learns to like, this is his way of saying goodbye to Eric by doing this beautiful tribute to him, acknowledging all the times they've had together. Because the assignment is to talk about where you're from. This is where you're from. This is your home. And for him, home is so defined by the people and his friendship. So there was always going to be the scene where he sits in front of the computer and he writes this. And that changed quite a lot. How do we transition from him describing a place and then a person?
Mm-hmm.
And that was sort of how we arrived at a place as the people. And when Blake recorded it, it felt right. Like, it felt like even though he's a kid, he is coming to that realization in a hard and painful way that saying goodbye to this place doesn't mean he's like abandoning this person in his heart. He's carrying him with him. And it felt right to me that this is the dramatic arc of this movie is really two friends learning to say goodbye to each other.
The next one, the main one that really stuck out to me, I Exist. And I think one of the reasons why it stuck out to me so much is it doesn't matter where you're from. End of the day, we're all humans. We all, we're all dreamers in our own way. It's in our DNA almost, pretty much, to want better. And sometimes the surroundings around us may kind of pull us away from that. And the fact that these two little kids are fully into the fact that reminding themselves that I exist. What does that mean to you?
It's assertion of their own personhood, in a world that is sometimes hostile toward it. When that scene emerged, it came out of an image. The image was of a boy looking out looking out toward the city through this fence. From the outside, it looks like a prison-like structure. The architecture of it, at least, it's these metal fences that are keeping people in. But from the inside looking out, to me, it felt like there was a lot of possibility and room to dream. And so I imagined a boy against the fence and him shouting that out into the world, that I matter.
Last one. Don't be afraid to fly. The street gets jumping. I guess that was it all. That was it all along. Yeah. Michael Jordan knew that all along, I guess. I know. That one specifically is, I guess, being from Chicago yourself and how big Jordan is there. That ties in so well within the movie, and especially where the scene where that comes in, it just really, like, I think that's the scene where I started hearing a lot of weeps and a lot of sniffling from the people all around me. So what did that mean to you, that specific line?
When we were editing that scene, Stephanie, it was written into the script, but Stephanie and I really wanted to land on that as the last thing that Malik leaves Eric with, because as he's saying goodbye to his friend, he's also like leaving him with something that he can take with him. And at the beginning of the movie, we see them as being a bit competitive with each other with jumping, and Malik wanting to keep it a secret. And at the end, him giving him the secret is really not so much about the secret himself, but it's a way of him saying he loves this person and he wants this person to thrive even as he's gone, that Eric has as much capacity and hope and potential and that he shouldn't be afraid, of that.
No, it's interesting. A lot of your films, like The Self, We Grow Now, and Hala, you work with younger creatives, and you have such a great way of directing them and kind of letting them flourish in their own way. So for a movie like this, how important was it to get the right actors to play Eric and Malik? Because they're carrying the film. They are truly, we see the film through their lens.
The casting process took a year and a half to find them, and we really needed kids who had the emotional maturity to take on a movie, because they really are, and they're pretty much in every scene of the film. They have dialogue. They're not just silent protagonists. It would be very difficult to make a movie where you would have to cut around the children, because they are the movie. And we found Blake and Gian through a casting long process where we were just getting tapes submitted. Blake was found first, and he just immediately, he had the charisma of Malik. He had the leadership qualities. He's originally from Alabama. He had a little bit of Southern feeling to him. He's an old soul, and he felt like Malik to me, like a dreamer. And then Gian is from Chicago, and he had such an incredible spirit to him. He's so vulnerable. When you look at him, you want to take care of him. And he was the perfect complement to Blake. And we rehearsed together. We had a chemistry read, and it was immediate. Like, these are the kids. It was so important. And then also with the adult casting too, with Journey and Esapatha and Lilrel, we needed people who could be generous with the children in these scenes, because it is so often focused on them. So they needed to be, really generous and make sure that the kids have what they need to do their best work. And Journey was really incredible with that. Yeah, because she also understood really well, like intimately, what children need, and specifically Blake, as she worked more with him, what he needed in a scene to motivate his reaction and get him to do things, because she'd also been a child actor. So she understood, and she was so generous with them. And it was an incredible process working with all of them together. They really felt like a family by the end of it.
Yeah, and that's one thing I loved about the movie. It just genuinely felt this is a family unit, and you can kind of take away bits and pieces. I know you take away bits and pieces that, yeah, my family's like this. Okay, my brother's like this. So I think that's something that was just so well done in the movie, and I commend you greatly for that, because you kind of put all the puzzle pieces together.
It was mostly them.
That's just the Pakistani in you that's not giving any credit to yourself. We're always like, no, it was you. But that's the one thing that I truly love about this film, is that it just had that human aspect to it, and it just really made you reflect on your own life and the goodbyes you've had to say, and everything else in regards to just everyday life.
Yeah.
So I truly love that. Just wrapping up here, what would you say was the biggest lesson you learned about yourself, and more so about life going forward from filming this movie?
I had just mentioned this to someone earlier, but in my work now and what I'm doing, because it is very difficult to make films, each one really has to change my life. And that's a tall order for a movie. In the process of making We Grow Now, I was processing my father's death. I was reconciling this difficult relationship I had with the city. I was understanding that home was a community, and being surrounded by people I love and who love me. And I wanted to focus more on that moving forward in the future. Like, I want to continue to cultivate that. And it took me a while, the process of making the movie and going back to Chicago, filming, reconnecting with family. That was the journey of the movie for me too. Like, I think that I had started that process with Hala, and then Regrow Now was like my transition into really sort of accepting that my family had changed, my city had changed, and I had also changed from life and living it, and then coming back and returning to it.
Beautifully said. I would congratulate you on the release of the film.
Thank you.
It's been amazing, and just being a fellow Pakistani creator, I get so much joy of seeing other Pakistani creatives flourish.
Thank you so much.
I'm so proud of you, and I truly wish you all the best in all your upcoming work.
Thank you so much.